Hey guys, for my new client, we're going to be taking her from a typical blonde foil and giving her more of a rooted balayage look. So keep watching to see how we do this transition. You can also follow me over on Instagram at Christy@thecottage. Here's my client's hair. You can definitely see those streaks in her hair from growing out for the last few months. Okay, my client that I'm getting ready to do right now, she's normally used to doing like a full foil and then like partial foil, full foil. So she has about or no, I think she said she hasn't gotten her hair done since January. So it's been about like 6-7 months or so. She's pretty dark naturally, probably like a level 5 or so, but she likes her hair nice and blonde, but not like too cool or ashy. So she wants to try doing a balayage to see how she likes it, just being able to naturally grow out. So right now we're going to use Schwarzkopf lightener, the Blonde Me with 20 volume and Olaplex, and I water my lightener down a little bit just because I feel like it helps it prevent from like swelling too much and puffing out of the packets. So that's what we're gonna do right now. And I don't know if you guys care, but I figured I'd show you so that you knew what the Schwarzkopf looks like. And the tools that I'm using is this nice brush by Framar, and then this board that I really like using for stability, and it helps me get better saturation. And I'm gonna be using the Framar foils. And I just do not a whole bunch of water, just a little bit. And this is how I like to mix my bleach, just kind of to consistency. Oh, another thing, somebody mentioned before, like instead of watering it down, why don't I just use like 10 volume? And I honestly think it's the activator. It just like causes it to swell up so much. So that's why I like to water it down, because I feel like even if I did use 10 volume, I feel like it would still like puff up a lot. And I have heard a lot from other stylists that the Schwarzkopf developer does cause it to swell. So that's just why I like to water it down. To start, we're going to go through and do her foils right around her face. And we're always gonna do these vertical foils instead of horizontal foils. That way her hair doesn't get those racing stripes down the side of her head. If you've watched a lot of my videos from the very beginning of my channel, then you've heard me say it time and time again. Always do vertical foils along the hairline instead of horizontal foils, because you don't want somebody to like pull their hair back and then they have all these lines like going up the side of their head. So that's why I like to do my foils this way. Depending on how strong and bright your client likes the blonde right on their face is gonna be how many foils you do. So I typically do about 2 to 3 foils just right on the hairline. And I always just do very, very soft baby lights, a very soft weave. That way, when they pull their hair back, it just blends really nicely and it looks as if the sun had sun-kissed their hair. If they want something a little bit more bold, I would say that you could maybe do 2 weaves back to back, and then 2 very soft weaves back to back, and then maybe do a slice directly behind those. That way the slice is still gonna blend a little bit, but it will give it that extra brightness that they want if they want it very bright around the face. I always foil the top of the hairline, also depending on their face shape. So for her, I'm going to do 2 sections back, and still we're just going to be doing the same very soft weaves back to back. I could go just straight down the center of her forehead, but then because her forehead is a little bit more broad, if I do it straight down the center, then the very edge of her forehead is going to be left out and will be natural and not really have any soft foils directly on her hairline there. So then at the very sides and top corners of her forehead, she's gonna have these like dark holes, like right in her hairline that hasn't been lightened. So if she ever pulls her hair straight back, her temple area and the very center of her forehead is going to have these really soft, nice highlights. But then at the very top edges, like the top corner of her forehead, is going to have like dark hair that doesn't blend with like cohesively around her whole hairline. So that's why I always say, depending on somebody's hairline, if you're able to get 2 sections, or maybe if their hair has more of like a triangle shape or whatever, if you have to do 2 sections right along the hairline, go ahead and take the time to do that, because it's going to make your client a lot happier versus feeling like they didn't get a nice, complete, like, brightness around their face. Another thing too is, have you ever done a foil where you ask somebody where they part their hair, and maybe you want to foil off of their part and do their foils around their face off their part too? So you just do it either like straight down the center or a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, and that's totally fine. But then say you're done styling the hair and then they flip their hair over a little bit if they're a hair flipper, and then now you have like where they flip their hair a darker area right on the hairline because we didn't do a complete hairline foil. So then you're kind of like, son of a bitch, stop flipping your hair, because you don't want them to see that, okay, I didn't foil exactly where they're gonna flip their hair at. So even if you foil off the side, if they part their hair off the side, I would still highly recommend going through and doing a complete hairline foil. That way you're safe and guaranteed that no matter where they flip their hair, where they part their hair at, you're gonna have a really nice blonde highlight wherever their hair lands. Okay, I'm done lecturing you about hairline foils. Let's get to the rest of the hair. So we're going to be doing a full balayage, or foilayage technically. And the reason why I choose to do this over an actual balayage is because I feel like this is going to insulate and get better lift. Even though she wants like more natural, warmer tones, she does not mean that she wants it to be brassy. And personally, I just feel like if I don't insulate it, even with, I know you can get like the saran wrap or the plastic or whatever, I still feel like you can get really good lift doing open air balayage, but I feel like it just creates too much warmth that is unwanted, especially with blondes. A lot of blondes, even if they want it to be like more natural and softer, not necessarily like super cool, I find that a lot of other hairstylists that I see, that there's still so much excess of like brassiness and just like too much warmth. So that's why I always choose to do foils and insulate my balayage, because I want to make sure that I'm getting the lift that my clients want. Because a lot of people don't really understand that when you do a balayage, that it does create a lot of warm tones, which is fine, but that's just not necessarily what a lot of people want. So for me personally, that's why I always do more of a foilayage and insulate my balayage. That way I can guarantee that I'm going to get the lift and the brightness that my clients are wanting. And the sectioning that I'm doing for my client is I'm doing zigzag partings, which is going to ensure that I have a nice blend. And then I'm going to weave her hair so that way we preserve a lot of her natural color. And also, again, this will help it blend really nicely. And I'm going to backcomb her hair, and I'm starting at the base of her neck, and I just went straight across. And then directly above that, I did 2 diagonal foils down towards the center, and then kind of like a V shaping, I guess. And then at the top of that V, I went back straight across again. So I'm just going to kind of repeat that sectioning all the way up, and that's going to help make sure that it has a really nice blend. If she parts her hair, she's not going to see like a big, huge chunk of blonde or, you know, a whole bunch of just darkness. No matter where she parts her hair, she's going to have it look really soft and blended throughout her whole head. Whereas before, when I would just do straight sections, if I had a subsection, then sometimes that would mean that it was all dark or all blonde. So I feel like doing diagonal partings has really helped in making sure that it's evenly blended all the way throughout the hair. Another question that I've been asked before is, am I doing full saturation or am I just surface painting? And when I'm using the border, honestly, when I do my foils, you can kind of tell that I'm like feathering up right at the root area. And so in that area, I'm just kind of surface painting, but probably like an inch down after that, everything is full saturation. That way we get even brightness all the way throughout her head. And I know the reason, like when people do surface painting, it's so that the underneath of that preserves like the depth of the color that we're wanting. And because we are doing like her subsections and diagonal partings and all of that stuff, we're still going to have a lot of her natural throughout her hair. So that in itself is going to preserve a lot of that depth that we're going to need and having those natural tones. So that's why I tend to always do like full saturation. That way, when we do a blonding service, we're getting like full impact of brightness versus like soft muted tones. And one thing that I have to be very careful sometimes is that when you backcomb, sometimes if somebody has very fine or thin hair, you kind of over backcomb sometimes because it doesn't feel like it's enough. But then when you pull the hair or when you comb through the hair, it's almost so faint and fine and not enough brightness. And so I've kind of learned from those experiences to just do full saturation. That way the hair that we are trying to get nice and bright gets like completely brightened throughout the whole like section, instead of being too faint and too soft of a blonde to where they don't even notice it anymore. I kind of feel like you can err on the side of being too bright when you're dealing with blondes versus not bright enough. because a lot of blondes, that's what they're used to. And even if you're trying to soften it down or kind of do a little bit more of a rooty look, I would definitely always say err on doing too much brightness, because you can always tone it down. But by the time you've gone through and done a full service, then if you haven't done enough blonding, then it's like you have to go all the way back through and do almost the whole service again, or just hurry up and pop in a few foils or something, which I have done in the past, where somebody was used to being very blonde and they wanted it to be more of a balayage, more rooty, and I was like super nervous, and so I like really heavily backcombed to make sure that it had such a good blend. But then when I was doing her blonde, like I was more surface painting, and so by the time we combed her hair out, like it was so blended in such a fine amount of blonding, like it almost was invisible and you couldn't see it. So that's why I'm like, you know what, screw this, we're just gonna use foils, we're gonna do like full saturation. This bitch is getting some blonde hair. So that's just my preference. I don't know how you feel about it. That's just like from my learning experiences that I've had. So I'm just passing that along to you. Err on the side of being a little bit too bright. I am using Olaplex and my bleach, but I don't know if you noticed this, that as I'm folding her foils up, I'm kicking her ends out to the side of the foils. And that's because even though we are trying to go a little bit brighter, her ends are very light already, but they do have a lot of yellow in them. And so I just want to kind of bust through that really fast. So I am going to try to bleach through it, but I don't want her hair to get damaged. Even though we are using Olaplex, I would still always rather be safe than sorry. So I'm bringing the bleach all the way through her ends, but because I want to make sure that we're not going to damage her hair, where her hair is already pre-lightened for the most part, especially through the very ends of her hair, I'm pulling those ends out to the side of the foil so that way they process, but then the bleach will dry out really quickly and then stop the process. So that's why we're pulling the sides out, to make sure that they're not going to over process and get damaged. I'm not going to do it with this client because she does want to stay a little bit warmer and softer and not necessarily cool or ashy. But if this was somebody that wanted very icy or cool blonde, when I'm done with her foils, especially in the back, you'll be able to see. I would normally go through and kind of paint the dropouts that are the subsections between her hair. That way we can try to eliminate as much of that yellow as possible and try to brighten it up. So I'm not doing that right now, but I did want to say, if you guys are trying to go for more of a cool icy blonde, then see all those ends hanging out, I would go through and paint those and try to brighten them up just a little bit more. And I'm also doing diagonal sections up the side of the head. And I'm only really going to have to do probably like 3 or 4 up the sides before I get to the top section. Now that we're closer to the top where her part is, I'm kind of going diagonal back off of her part directly. So that way she's gonna have the blonde right on her part, but because we're angling it back and away from her part area, she's still gonna have that darker, rootier look that's gonna kind of fall on top of the blonde. So we're not gonna foil straight across her part and make it so that she's extra bright. Diagonaling it back a little bit is going to kind of preserve some of that darkness right on the part line. So that's what we're going to do as we finish up right now. Well, this foiling part kind of goes on for a while, so I thought I'd take the opportunity to talk to you guys for a little bit. Hey, what's up? So, I've been thinking lately, I've kind of had it on my mind that I want to change my YouTube name and also my Instagram name, and I kind of want to do it before like it gets confusing to you guys. Say that like all of a sudden my name changes and you're like, well, who the hell is this bitch, you know? And then you're like, whose videos are popping up on my screen because it's not the same person. And then guess what? It really is. So that's, I think it's like a good time to talk to you guys about it. So I don't want to say exactly what I'm thinking that I want my name to be, but I actually have this like secret plan in my head of like what I actually like, this whole business plan idea that I want to do, but I can't do it right now because financially it's just not realistic. So it's kind of a ways away, but I just want to put the idea out there because good things come to those who wait. And I figure that I just want to keep you guys in the loop. So if there's a time where my YouTube name changes, then now you know why. Another thing is that I had a really hard time when I was first like trying to come up with my YouTube name, because so my actual name is Christy Smith, but my married/divorced now name is Jennings, but like that's my legal name. And I was like, well, I don't want to put it Jennings because I'm not ever going to keep that. But like my boyfriend that I'm with now, his last name is Jackson. But like we're not married yet. So like I'm not going to put Jackson. So then I was like, okay, what if I just put like Hair by Christy J? But then I feel like that sounds kind of like a dumbass name. So then I was like, whatever, dude, I'm just not going to do like Jennings or Jackson or J or anything like that. So, anyways, I ended up doing, like the first intro when it comes in is Hair by Christy Harchie is what my middle name is. And I think my actual YouTube name did end up becoming Hair by Christy Jennings, I think, just because I couldn't like figure out what else to do, but that will be changing. So when I did my intro as Hair by Christy Harchie, I figured that's what eventually I would change my YouTube name to, but I never did that. So that's why they're like two different things. And but then I thought, like, I don't know if I want to have my YouTube name be Hair by Christy Harchie, because Hartje, like, unless you're German, nobody knows how the hell to pronounce that or what does that even mean. And so I don't want people to be like, oh, hey, does anybody know, like, what are some good blonding videos that I could do? And then somebody's like, oh, if you go on YouTube and search up Crazy Hartje or Heart J or whatever, like, I've heard the most ridiculous names of people trying to figure out how to pronounce my middle name. So then I was like, yeah, that doesn't sound like a very good idea. So that's why I ended up doing Christy Jennings. Anyways, a million hours long of a story short, I'm going to be changing my YouTube name, my Instagram name, and I just want to give you guys a heads up so when the time comes, like, you're prepared for it. And then I'll be able to go into more detail of some ideas that I have that might take years to happen or whatever. But as, you know, just an idea, and hopefully maybe someday it will come true. But I just wanted to keep you guys in the loop. Okay, and about 10 hours later, we're finally done putting in our foils. This is why I like foilayage. Bam! Look at that blonde. No brassiness, no warm tones, just a nice, bright blonde. So that's why I like to insulate my balayage, foilyage. And you can see as we're pulling her foils out that she lightened up really nicely. And honestly, if I wanted to, I could probably just pre-tone with Fanola and No Yellow shampoo. If you haven't tried it, try it, because it's some of the best purple shampoo that cancels out any warmer brassy tones, and I highly recommend it. So we're going to pre-tone her with the Fanola No Yellow and then do an Olaplex treatment, and then we will tone her. Okay, so my client, I just washed her out and pre-toned her a little bit with the Fanola No Yellow shampoo, just to get, like, try to cancel out any warmth or too much brassiness or warmth that there is. However, she doesn't want to tone down, like, she doesn't like it super cool or ashy. She just likes it like kind of like a nice natural blonde. Kind of not like super warm, not cool or ashy at all. So I think the toner that I'm going to use is the Igor Vibrance by Schwarzkopf, and I'm going to use 9546. But because that looks kind of, I don't know if it'll be like too beige or anything, just to cool it down a little bit, I'm gonna add a little bit of 9-1. So, and honestly, I'll probably do like 3/4 of the 9546 to a 1/4 ounce of the 9-1. I'm not gonna record it, so that way you guys know the formulation is just a little bit of the 9-1. Okay, another thing is, because her hair is really white in some areas, and I don't want her to feel like too toned down as far as the blonde goes, down to like a level 9. So I'm going to add some just straight clear, just to hopefully keep it a little bit brighter, but still warm. And this is what I'm using to mix my toner, 6 volume. And I normally don't include myself curling my clients because I don't want to bore you guys. So, or, you know, have my freaking videos drag on for 10 hours. So, but actually recently a lot of people have been asking about curling hair videos. And so I thought I'd include this in this video. So if you don't want to watch this or don't care about curling, then just go ahead and skip through for a few minutes. So, but if you do care and are interested in seeing how I style my clients, then keep watching. So I always curl my clients the same. I use my flat iron and I try to stay below 350 for temperature, because too high of heat is going to burn the hair and cause it to go brassy or orange or yellow or whatever. So I always do my sections, and I always 100% of the time curl away from the face. I always curl in the same direction. So you'll see here I take a decent size of hair, not like too thick or anything, and I'm curling towards the back of the head, and then twist the curl back into shape, and then kind of pull it straight down through the ends. I never curl all the way through the very, very, very ends of the hair. I just kind of leave them out a little bit so that they're a little bit softer and straighter. So if you want them to be extremely straight, then you can always just curl the flat iron through, or straighten the flat iron through the very ends. So this is how I always style my clients, just whatever styling tool that you use, I always just use a flat iron because I feel like I get better curl and it's faster that way for me. But if you use a curling iron or a wand, you can generally get the same curling effect with whatever tool that you're comfortable using. Just take whatever sections and smooth out the root area to prevent any frizz, and just curl towards the back center, and then retwist the hair up into the shape and then pull it a little bit straight through the ends, and just kind of hold it for a second so that it kind of cools off a little bit straighter just in the very end area. And then let it sit like that for a few minutes. Make sure that your curls are cooled off before you rake your hands through the hair or anything. And then once everything's done and it's sprayed down and it's cooled off, then I'll take my comb and I'll just kind of grab it and comb through the very ends of the hair, and then I will make sure that the sides are cooled off, and then I'll comb through everything, and that way it just kind of blends the curls together and gives it more of a loose body wave. And that is how I do all of my clients' hair.
It's very pretty. Thank
Yeah.
you. It feels really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that fresh chop.
Yeah.
Too. Put it in. Really
Thanks.
Thanks. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Here's her before again, very heavy grow out, and now you can see that her hair is going to grow so much softer and a lot more blended, and she'll be able to go a little bit longer without feeling the need to have to come in. So thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you have any questions or comments, leave it in the section below and I will be sure to get back to you.